The Voice Protocol. Episode 3, The Scrapyard Ghost, Part 1 of 2. The Boneyard didn't circle anything alive. It ate. It chewed old wars and spat out profit. From a distance, the field looked like frost glittering around a dead asteroid. Up close, it was a cathedral of wrecks. Cruiser spines stabbed through carrier ribs, gun decks peeled like fruit, hull plates turned into knives by vacuum and time. Torchlight flickered everywhere, salvage crews in pressure skins cutting value from bones, welders arcing blue under the blood-red smear of navigation beacons. Between it all drifted the slow guardians of this place, cranes on tethered tracks, big as apartment blocks, their claws clamped on a frigate half dissolved to scrap. Jax let the shuttle glide with everything loud turned off. Only the whisper of thrusters answered his touch. The cockpit carried the cool breath of recycled air and the steady glow of instruments stitched back together too many times. "Dock authority tag reads Skane Syndicate," Lumen said. Their voice was soft, angelic even when they didn't mean it to be. "They prefer bribes to paperwork." Orryx crouched behind the pilot's chairs, shoulders grinding softly against bulkhead metal. "Stone pays in weight," he rumbled. "Bribes are for sand." "Good thing we brought both," Rika said. She cleaned her rifle with the careful efficiency of someone who never trusted safety catches. Her eyes tracked the field like a hunter studying wind. She had tied her hair back with a length of frayed pressure tape. It looked wrong on anyone else. It worked on her. The voice had said, "Retrieve the flight recorder from the Concord cruiser Retribution. Ignore local entanglements. Time is a fuse." It hadn't said please. It never did. Jax eased them toward a traffic lane marked by battered buoys. The shuttle's old bones creaked as the Boneyard's gravity tickled their hull. "We play it quiet. Pay the gate. Get a salvage slot near the Retribution. In and out." "In and out," Rika echoed. "You know that's code for it goes loud in 10 minutes. "It goes loud," Jax agreed. "When someone wants it to." Lumen's eyes unfocused. "Negotiating docking handshake. They're pretending to run a registry, but it's a storefront for extortion. Acceptable extortion, but still." A chipper voice bled through on a public loop. "Welcome to Skane's spine, jewel of the Boneyard. Your safety is our profit." "Honest," Rika said. "I'm touched." They slid into the shadow of the spine, a spindle-shaped asteroid with towers welded like teeth along its crown. Nets bristled from the rock, strung with broken satellites and turrets muzzle down. The main habring was open to the field on one side, sealed to vacuum by shimmering pressure films that rippled as ships passed through. Jax lined up with a slot and drifted through membrane into the ring. The sudden hush of atmosphere made the hull sing. Docks yawned like bays in a whale's ribs. Vents coughed steam. Everywhere, the smell of hot metal and old grease. A marshalling drone bumped the shuttle's nose with more enthusiasm than finesse, then flashed a demand code. Lumen paid it in dirty credits. The drone chirped approval and flashed a vector. Jax killed drift and dropped them on skids, shoulders loosening when the metal of the dock pressed back. The radio crackled with a voice that had smoked too many things that weren't tobacco. "Unregistered salvage. Welcome to the spine. Declare rig, crew count, and tithe weight." "Tithe?" Jax said. "Your share to the Lord of the Heap," the voice said. "You get to work." "He gets to live like a god. Everyone wins." "Declare us as a courier with dead nav," Jax told Lumen. "Crew 4. No salvage claim. We're only here for a trade." "Filed," Lumen said. And maybe it was the light. Maybe it was nothing. But for half a heartbeat, Jax thought he saw a shadow cross their perfect face. "Jax." The voice pushed a secondary directive under the first. He didn't look away from the panel. Of course it did. "Avoid recruitment," Lumen read. "Engineer on spine is contaminated. Politically." Rika snorted. "Meaning?" Someone here tells truths the voice doesn't like. Orryx's granite plates flexed. Stone listens to truth. Lies break under weight. Jax strapped on his sidearm, checked the mag, and stood. The skin under his jacket's collar prickled where the dog tags used to hang. He touched the spot anyway, out of habit. We find the gatekeeper. Then the grave. Lumen palmed the hatch. Heat and noise rolled in like weather. Dockhands pushed carts. Exo-rigs shouldered past, metal feet biting the deck. Scavenger kids in patch suits chased a rolling spool, bareheaded in the ring's crappy gravity like they'd learned to breathe iron. A woman with a slate and a harness on her chest walked toward them with the unhurried certainty of someone who didn't need to hurry. She wore a jacket that had been expensive before the universe started chewing it. Scars ran down her jaw like someone had tried to erase her smile with a lit wire. She smiled anyway. "I'm Quill," she said. "Skane's ledger." Jax said. He didn't offer a hand. She looked him up and down like a mechanic checking for oil leaks. Her gaze slid to Rika, to Orryx, to Lumen, and came back to him. "Courier with dead nav," she read from air only she could see. "Crew 4. "No salvage claim. That's what you told my drone." "True enough." "True enough is for people who like accidents," Quill said. "What you need is a blessing, and you need to pay for it." Jax held her eyes. "We need a slot close to a Concord cruiser. Old designation Retribution. We keep our heads down. We don't touch the spine's lanes. We're gone in hours." "Funny thing about hours," Quill said. "They collapse into minutes when Skane gets a tip about a Concord recorder and decides he'd like to retire on something nicer than this asteroid." Rika's hands were empty, but her weight had shifted. Orryx's did not move, and yet everything about him changed. "We'll take the blessing," Jax said. He set a credit chit in Quill's palm. She didn't look at it. "Not enough," she said, and pushed it back without glancing down. "You want the slot. You want not to be harassed by Skane's sparks. You want to leave with whatever you found. Triple tithe. Plus you buy drinks for my boys at shift's end. The good kind, not mingled spirits." "That's a lot of blessing." "This rock runs on rust and courtesy," Quill said, still smiling. "You don't look courteous." "Be rust, then." Jax thought of the voice's second directive, slick as a knife behind the ribs. Avoid recruitment. He thought of Rhea 14 and of how orders had turned the word acceptable into a coffin. He nodded once and slid the chit back. "Triple tithe," he said, "and the good kind." Quill's smile touched her eyes for the first time. "Gate 4. Speak nicely to the loader. It speaks only poorly to you." She moved away as if she'd never been. People flowed around her. The spine went on, indifferent and awake. "Avoid recruitment," Rika said, falling in at Jax's shoulder. "You going to listen?" "I listen to a lot of things," Jax said. "I don't marry them." They passed a repair pit sunk into the deck, just a hole with lights hung like lanterns, conduits crawling down into the spine's steel flesh. The pit steamed from a heat exchanger that someone had convinced to keep breathing by pounding it with a hammer. 5 workers in patched skins were crawling over a shuttle's innards like ants on a carcass, hands black with grease, eyes hollow with shift. Above them, strung to a pipe, someone had hung a cluster of charms made from scrap and copper fragments. The charms clinked when the heat exchanger coughed. It sounded like prayer throwing sparks. A figure stood knee-deep in a mess of cable, hair bound in a rag, face streaked with carbon. She had the kind of posture that came from bending over a problem for too long, and the kind of eyes that were too keen to belong to someone who'd given up. She was arguing with a man twice her size who wore a Syndicate armband and a plug-in jaw. "The manifold is cracked," she said, patient even in anger. "I can weld all night, but I'd be welding lies." "You run her. She blows under load, and we all die loud." "You run what Skane tells you to run," Plugjaw said. "We don't have spares for your principles." She slid a spanner into a pocket that had once been a sleeve. "Then tell your boss his tax on physics is overdue." The man took a step into her space. She didn't move. Two other workers flexed like they might and then thought better of it. Plugjaw grabbed her rag by the knot and yanked. She moved with him only because physics insisted. Her hands didn't rise. They were full of cable. She looked him in the face like he was a puzzle, and she was bored with puzzles. Jax found himself already stepping down into the pit. He didn't remember deciding. Lumen's hand brushed his sleeve once, a warning that was also a question, and let go. "Let the worker work," Jax said. Plugjaw turned. His mounted jaw clicked as servos found a bite. "You offering your lungs to replace the manifold when it pops?" Orryx's shadow blotted the pit like an eclipse. "He offers wisdom," the Karok said. "It is cheaper than buying new heads." "The hell are you?" Plugjaw said. But he'd already started to lose the fight with his own survival reflexes. Orryx did not threaten him. Orryx existed near him, and that was enough. The woman shook free the rag, retied it, and slid her spanner into a belt that had seen better lives. "If you cut the heat by a third, this junk will limp another day," she told Plugjaw. "If you don't, we'll ship bodies." Plugjaw looked between the giant stone alien and the woman with the scuffed eyes. He snorted, spat out a glob of something that smoked on the deck, and stomped away. "You're welcome," Jax said. She looked up at him, then, really looked. The recognition was not of his face. It was of the way he stood. Command in the bones is hard to hide, even when the insignia have been ripped away. She saw that, he could tell. She didn't like that she'd seen it. "Don't rescue me," she said. "Fixers always charge more after." "Not a fixer," Jax said. "Everyone's fixing something," she said, and slid the cable into place. "Kira," she added, as if she hated that introductions were a thing. "Valen, people here call me Glitch because it makes them feel clever." "Jax." "I know." She reached for a solder wand. "Concord hangs legends on war criminals and war crimes on legends. You look like both. What do you want, Jax?" He could have lied. The voice would have liked that. The voice liked everything clean and sharp. "We need the Retribution's flight recorder," he said. "Your boss wants it too, which I'm sure he told you, because men who want to be gods love to share." Skane doesn't share. He rents fear. She looked up then, eyes narrowing. "And you want what? Directions? Blessing? Or let me guess, a recruitment?" Rika's mouth quirked. Lumen went very still. "I want a safe way through the wreck," Jax said. "You know the Boneyard's tides. I can see it on your hands." "On my hands," Kira said, and held them up, grease to the wrists, tiny burns like constellations. "Concord engineer once upon a time, signed off on nothing that kept me clean, refused one thing and lost everything. Now I keep Skane's junk breathing long enough to kill other people. Why would I help you?" "Because the recorder's yours," Jax said. "Not Skane's, not mine. And because I've seen what happens when the wrong people write the ending." She stared at him as if there were a mirror between them, and she didn't like either face. "There's a salvage window before Concord's cutters roll in," she said finally. "You won't beat Skane to the grave. He's already sent his hooks." She jerked her chin at a cluster of red band teams loading into EVA. "They pray. You'll be picked out of the bones." "Not if the bones like us," Lumen said. Kira looked at them as one looks at a beautiful knife, carefully. "What are you?" "Practical," Lumen said, and smiled without showing any teeth. "Do you want to leave this place, Kira?" "Do you?" she shot back. "The spine is a throat." Skane closes the windpipe when he wants singing to stop. Jax set a wafer on a nearby crate. It looked like junk. It was a map. "If you change your mind," he said, It will blink when we're close to the Retribution. It only blinks once. I won't change my mind, he nodded, believing her and not believing any future. Then keep living, he said, and climbed out of the pit. Recruitment denied, Rika murmured as they walked. You're getting good at following orders. Watch me, Jack said. Gate 4's loader was a machine on 4 crooked legs wearing stickers of saints and skulls. It resented their mass as if mass were a moral failing. They settled into a slot flagged red on the board, which meant do not ask what this costs. Lumen leaned into a maintenance jack and whispered to the port. Their eyes tracked things no one else saw. Skane's hooks launched 15 minutes ago, they said. They vector toward the Retribution's forward wound. Pressure seals on her ruptured when she died. Easy in, hard out. Orryx checked the grapples at his harness and frowned, which made everything on his face look like it had been carved deeper. The void here feels like a slope. Stone was not made for slopes. We'll tie you in like a ship, Jack said. You're our anchor. Rika slid into her sealed suit with fluent practice and slapped the mag on her rifle so it sang. I'll take high drift, she said. You dance. I'll shoot music. The hatch opened on cold and light. They ghosted out into the Boneyard in 4 lines joined by cable and truss. The Retribution loomed where the field got denser, its hull torn open on a diagonal like something enormous had tried to bite the ship in half and gotten bored. Its name still ran along the intact flank in Concord military font that pretended to be reasonable. Rhea-era burn scars blackened the plates like old welts. The ship's bow hung, a cliff face above a forest of junk. In the rent, beams glinted like bone. Red band salvage teams jetted along the edge. They cut with torches and sent spider drones through gaps, little machines with too many legs and hungry lights. The drones went in slick fast and came back trailing cable. A big hook in a suit with a hydraulic spine laughed over open comm as he watched a drone pull a crate through too small a space until the crate stuck and the drone kept pulling, its little motors whining with machine agony. Rika's breath hissed once. Garbage theatrics. Stay on our lane, Jack said. No poetry. They crossed the shadow of a turret big as a house and tucked under a plate. The field's tide pushed at them, a slow, relentless pressure that wanted to move everything to somewhere colder and darker. Jax timed his pulls with the pulse, fought the sway, and kept Orryx between himself and the currents whenever he could. Anchors and sails, both. Lumen lit their wrist lamp once and killed it again. There's a harmonics echo, they whispered on suit to suit. The Retribution remembers being a ship. I remember, Orryx said. Stone keeps the shape of all the weight it has held. Rika's chuckle was a line cut in ice. You two are going to write a book, and I'm going to shoot it for being sentimental. They hit the tear and dipped inside. The world became girders and darkness, and the smellless taste of old fire. Their suit lamps painted the space in cones. Every surface had dust clinging to it in a way that wasn't dust. Vapor refrozen, ash, bits that had no names anymore. They moved along a corridor that had ceased to be a corridor and become an open throat shaft where decks had caved into decks. Gravity was a rumor in here, turning slowly with the ship's dead spin. Jax's stomach floated behind him like a bad idea. On their external cams, a red band team cut their way in through the deck above and rode their own debris down. One of them clipped a beam and smashed into a bulkhead face first. The man bounced and drifted and laughed, flipping the hook salute and spraying a picture of Skane's grinning face over the wall with a paint marker. Someone else toggled a torch and cut the picture in half. Eyes, Rika said in Jax's ear. 2 on your left. Hooked drones. No curiosity. All hunger. Lumen, Jax said. Lumen's fingers made small, precise moves in air. Their eyes flicked. I can talk to them, they breathed. But only the words their masters taught them. Say nap, Rika suggested. Lumen whispered a command in a code that had the rhythm of a lullaby and the grammar of violence. One drone faltered and went still, light dying like a tiny sunset. The other jittered and jerked toward them faster. Rika's shot punched a hole through its center. The little machine folded into itself as delicately as origami and drifted past, a dead flower. "Moving," Jack said, because moving was always better than thinking about what could have been worse. Kira's wafer blinked in his pocket. Once. He had not expected it to. He toggled the private feed Lumen had burned into the local traffic. "You have a short memory," he said. "Skane has a long whip," Kira's voice answered, and she sounded like she hated the tether of both. "He sent me with his hooks. I kept a line on you. You're 3 cuts behind. There's a pressure nest 2 decks below the nav gray. Your suits will hate it. Take the service crawl to starboard. Split at the broken ladder that's not a ladder. Left gets you a dead end with teeth. Right gets you me on a hot panel." "Accepting your hospitality," Jack said. "Don't," she said. "Just don't die near me." "It's messy." Rika said nothing, which was exactly as judgmental as if she'd said everything. They shifted starboard. The crawl Kira had named was a tube half-collapsed, ribbed with something that used to be a coolant vein. Orryx didn't fit. He made himself fit. The sound of stone rasping metal set Jax's teeth on edge. Lumen went first, all grace and exactness in 0G, fingertips whispering along walls. Rika watched their rear. She painted nothing with her rifle, but the angles were already solved in her head. The broken ladder that wasn't a ladder was a frame for a panel that would never be a panel again. Left showed a glimmer that looked like light and was teeth. A cloud of microcutters idling in their dock, waiting for a signal. Right was dark and smelled like burned capacitors if you imagined the smell, because you missed having air. They went right, a flash above. The hooks had dropped down a level on tethers and were cutting a path through a bulkhead with chef's pride. Rika aimed up along her line and didn't fire. Jax didn't tell her not to. They did not exist to those men until they needed to. Kira waited inside a junction box the size of a coffin. She had her gloves off and her fingers deep in a nest of fiber and epoxy like it was an animal she was trying to midwife. The light from her wand cut her face into planes as she glanced up. "You're late," she said. "By which I mean you're precisely on time because that's how stories work." "You in trouble," Jax said. "Perpetually," she said. "Skane put a foreman on my shoulder. He has a gun and an imagination that's 90% stabbing. He thinks this recorder is his retirement home. You're about to make him disappointed. He's not going to take that gently." "Is there another way through?" Lumen asked, already seeing pathways none of the rest of them could. "Navcore vaults 3 bulkheads down," Kira said, hands still in the panel. "Run by a Concord mind that died without being told it was dead. It will try to run the lockdown if anyone whispers help in the wrong dialect. The hooks will try to burn through. The ship will take that personally and vent them like champagne." "Your plan," Jack said. "Whisper not an emergency exactly loud enough to pass for a drill," Kira said, "and pray the ship still respects paperwork." Lumen's voice went lower. "I can be paperwork." Kira's nostrils flared before she extinguished any expression at all. "If you get in, you're inside an old brain that bled. It will try to save you by killing you. It will call you fire." "Everything calls me something," Lumen murmured. The foreman popped his head around the corner, gun already coming up. He had the kind of jaw that grew on bullies like barnacles, and the kind of eyes that had never seen anyone bigger than himself long enough to be confused. He saw Orryx and was confused. He shot anyway. Orryx leaned, and the shot took a spark from the plates under his clavicle and died. The foreman corrected, good reflexes, and shot again for the mouth. Rika put a round through his gun and a second through the hinge of his shoulder. The weapon spun. He went quiet, face bleached by shock, hands curling against air. Kira did not flinch. Her hands never left the panel. That was my excuse to spend 30 seconds finishing this, she said. Thanks. Footfalls on metal, thuds of boots that wanted to be drums. The hooks were coming. Their laughter had gone sharp and pleased. Jax made the calls he knew how to make. Orryx, hold! Rika, choke right! Lumen! Inside, Lumen said and slid 2 fingers into the panel beside Kira's. Their pupils blew, then forked, pupil within pupil, a blossom of apertures. The air around their cheekbones haloed with bioluminescent shadows. Hello, Retribution, they whispered in a voice that wasn't entirely their own. It's inspection day. Something ancient and damaged stirred in the walls. A hum like breath not taken filled the junction. For a heartbeat, Jax felt a pressure he knew was not real. A ship looking back at him. A ship believing itself alive because it had always had the decency to pretend. Not an emergency, Lumen said. Drill. A test. Repeat. You are not on fire. Not, the ship seemed to say in a vibration too small to hear. Fire. Not, Lumen repeated, and swayed as if something inside them had slid a little too far in one direction. Kira's hand snapped out without thinking and caught their elbow. Her other hand kept the lead steady. Say it like you mean it, Kira whispered. Systems are like old men. They believe confidence. Not an emergency, Lumen said, and this time their voice held the cool, bored cadence of a mid-tier Concord tech who had seen it all and been impressed by none of it. This is a scheduled drill. Stand by for hardware protocol access test. You are not on fire. The deeper hum evened. A panel in the deck burped and unlocked like a mouth deciding to yawn because everyone else was. Somewhere down the corridor, a barrier sighed and rolled open. The hooks yelled in triumph at the sudden generosity of a door. It was a lie. It would teach them manners or kill them telling the lesson. Kira let go of Lumen and pulled her hands from the box. That's as good as it gets, she said. Now you can go steal the confession that buys my death. Or your name, Jax said. That too, she said, and wiped her palms on her rag as if any of their hands would ever get clean. They moved as a knot, Kira with them because not being with them would have been worse. The vault was down a corridor that had reasserted its identity as a corridor with a stubborn dignity Jax respected. The door was a slab of composite metal and logic. It bore a seal the Concord put on things that were supposed to outlive embarrassment. Kira put her palm to the plate. It won't know me, she said. Concord changed my name to unemployable. Let it know me, Lumen said. They set their fingers to the glass. Hello again. Inspection day is boring. Open. Operator code, the door said in a whisper that lived in the bones. Override by audit, Lumen replied. Authorization chain, the door insisted, becoming a bureaucrat. Jax watched Lumen weave a credential from nothing and muscles and memory that belonged to no one living. The door sighed like a clerk finding the right stamp in a stack of drawers. It slid. Inside, the vault looked like a chapel built by accountants. Racks of crystalline storage blocks glowed with the pale, steady light of machines that thought well of themselves. In the center, under a hood, the recorder waited. A dense black rectangle, more weight than its size demanded, built to survive anything but the truth it carried. Hooks, Rika said in a voice thinner than breath. They had moved quiet, these men. They had learned once. Now they were here. Guns up, eyes bright with hunger. The biggest of them wore Skane's crest painted on his suit in glistening red. He kept his gun at his hip and his smile where everyone could see it. He flicked his chin at the recorder. You dragged the coffin to the door for me, he said. I appreciate neighbors. No neighbors, Orryx said, stepping forward until he had cut the biggest hook out of his pack with presence alone. Only stones and thieves. Peace, Rock, the hook said. We're all thieves. Some of us just own the warrant. He shot then, fast and mean, because talking was boring and bullets were a better language. The shot pinged off Orryx's shoulder and took a divot of stone and made the glow under it surge. Orryx reached for the man with a speed that denied his mass. The world fell into the intimacy of close-quarters violence. Rika went to her belly in the air and fired through a gap the size of a handspan, the round skidding past a hook's visor and cracking it like thin ice. Jack slid under a wild swing, slammed his elbow into a wrist, took the gun falling with a sideways grab, and bore two men backward with the momentum and the insistence that he'd done this before more times than they had. Kira's hand found the recorder with a reverence that wasn't about worship. She looked at it once with an expression that broke and didn't break her face, and then slipped it into a cradle harness she had made out of cable ties and nerve. "This is going to make all the wrong people fall in love with me," she said. "You look terrible for a date," Rika said, and shot a hook through the hip. Orryx and the hook boss hit a rack and turned it to shattered music. The big man's hydraulic spine hissed. He grinned through blood and brought up a cutter torch like a short sword and slashed it across Orryx's chest. Stone popped. The smell of hot mineral filled the room like it had a right to be there. Orryx took the blow like a mountain taking a story. Then he put his hand on the man's shoulder and squeezed. Steel complained. Flesh remembered it was flesh and made the sound flesh makes when it runs out of options. The man hissed like his spine had taught him how. Orryx pushed him away before he broke, not out of mercy but out of focus. There were more. Lumen moved like a thought through the racks. Their hands ghosted the interface nodes. Their face shone with an inward light no lamp could make. Recorder cradle decoupled. They said calmly into the storm. "The vault knows you don't belong, Kira. I am telling it that you are an uninteresting audit." "That's the nicest thing anyone said all day," Kira said. "Friends," the voice said in the back of Jax's skull, cool as the first time it had ever claimed him. He had half forgotten the particular temperature of that word. "Concord cutters are angling burn toward the field. Skane is powering up his frame. You will not make it out if you stop for people." "Not now," Jax said out loud because anger needed air. "Always now," the voice answered. The hook boss staggered up and laughed blood. "Skane's on his way," he slurred, delighted just to be the herald of something bigger than himself. "Warden frame in the jaw, boys. You're dead already." Rika knocked him out with the butt of her rifle because talking was giving him life. "Recorder," Jax said. Kira held it like it weighed more than she did and less than anything else that mattered. She didn't look at him. Her eyes were on a place inside her skull where memories and predictions were having a dispute. "There's something you don't understand," she said. "This isn't just fleet paths. It's—" "Later," Jax said. "Now," she said. And there was no plea in it. There was just a beam of need. "This will clear my name, and it will cut an admiral's throat." The floor shivered like a giant had put a hand on the ship's hull and decided to lean. Showers of dust fell. Somewhere far off, metal screamed. Skane had arrived. The spine's owner liked to enter places like a god who expected to find worship and was prepared to take it. "Orryx," Jax said, steady under everything. "We need a wall." "Stone was born," Orryx said, and stepped into the door to become the answer to the question, what stops everything else? Lumen's eyes cleared. "The ship will let us pass for 10 minutes, they said. After that, it will remember that drills have ends." "Good," Rika said. "I like deadlines." "They're honest." Kira slung the recorder with all the tenderness of a soldier slinging a wounded friend. She looked at Jax. "Your voice is going to tell you that leaving me behind keeps you alive," she said. "It's already tried," Jax said. Kira's mouth flattened. "Of course it has." The hall outside the vault boomed with an impact that had mass and a budget. The light flickered like a candle deciding how much it wanted to be a memory. The air in their tongues tasted like arc light and the future leaning in with teeth. "Time to go," Jax said. They went. Episode 3, The Scrapyard Ghost, Part 2 of 2, Conclusion. The corridor shook again, dust swirling in lazy spirals under the dim light of dying strips. The sound was wrong for a ship this dead. It was alive, rhythmic, the sound of something big arriving. "Skane's frame?" Kira muttered, clutching the recorder tighter against her chest. "He brought it down here." Idiot wants to wear a god's skin in 0G. "Frame?" Rika asked, already checking her mag. "Warden class Exo," Kira said. "Scrap-welded and overclocked. Think Concord riot armor, scaled to a cathedral, piloted by an addict." Orryx stood in the door like he'd been carved to fill that space. His massive arms braced on the bulkheads. "Stone holds," he said. "Go." Jax shook his head. "Not yet. He's not stopping Skane alone." The floor lurched again, then tore as something heavier than the corridor had ever meant to carry smashed through plating above. Sparks rained down in blinding arcs. A massive silhouette dropped with them. Iron limbs stitched from stolen Concord plating, hydraulic lines glowing orange like veins of magma, a cockpit head crowned with horns of raw metal. "Neighbors!" Skane's voice boomed through loud hailers mounted on the frame's shoulders. "I see you've been borrowing from my pantry." His laughter cracked with chemical static. "That's not neighborly." The frame's arm swung, a slab of alloy ending in a claw that could shear a tank. It punched into the bulkhead a meter from Orryx, denting steel like wet clay. Orryx shoved forward, granite fists slamming into the claw. Metal screamed, sparks cascaded. Orryx held the machine there, stone against steel, unmoving. "Go!" he barked, voice echoing like mountains breaking. Rika rolled under the arc of the second claw, firing 3 rounds into the cockpit seam. Sparks burst, but Skane's armor plates held. "That's Concord mill-grade shielding," she hissed. "Concord doesn't waste shielding on people like him," Kira shot back, yanking at Jax's sleeve. "He's got a power bleed." "Overclocked plating. It'll burn itself out if we don't die first." "Suggestions?" Jax asked, sliding behind a support strut as a claw smashed down where he'd been. "Cut his lines," Kira said. She jabbed a grease-black finger toward the glowing hydraulics that snaked along the frame's arms. "Those veins keep him moving." "You pop them. He's a statue." "On it," Rika said, vaulting up the wreckage to flank. The voice pressed cold into Jax's skull. "Leave the engineer. Take the recorder. Efficiency demands sacrifice." "Shut up," Jax growled, firing twice at Skane's optics to draw attention away from Rika. Skane howled in delight. "Voices in your head too, little soldier. We all hear something when the void gets quiet." The frame tore free from Orryx's grip, shoving him back into a bulkhead hard enough to crack the wall. The Stoneborn grunted, glowing fissures spreading across his chest like molten rivers. He roared, shoved off the wall, and grappled the frame's torso, dragging it sideways into a support beam. Metal shrieked as the corridor buckled. "Kira!" Jax barked. "Help me make a hole!" She dropped to her knees, solder wand already out. Sparks spat as she ripped open a maintenance hatch. Wires bled light. "Bridge the red with the black when I say," she snapped. Jax jammed his hand into the bundle. The hum rattled his bones. "Now!" Kira yelled. He crossed the lines. Energy surged through the corridor. Lights exploded. The hydraulic veins along Skane's frame flared brilliant orange, then blue. Jets of superheated fluid sprayed into vacuum, boiling instantly. The frame staggered, claws jerking wildly. Rika seized the opening. 3 precise shots. 1 round severed a line at the shoulder, the second at the knee, the third through the exposed optic cluster. The frame screamed static and collapsed, shaking the deck as its claws gouged deep scars into the floor. Orryx shoved off, chest glowing with heat cracks, and kicked the dying machine back into the corridor's dark. Metal groaned as the wreck tumbled into the void. "Frame neutralized," Rika reported, steady even as her breathing rasped. Kira slammed the hatch shut, panting. "That buys us minutes, not hours. Concord cutters will be here any cycle now." "Then we move," Jack said. They ran through the torn corridors, dragging themselves along beams and through broken bulkheads, Orryx taking the rear as living wall, Rika clearing the lead. Lumen whispered codes to keep doors yawning open just long enough for them to slip through. Kira clutched the recorder to her chest as if it were her own heart. At last, they burst into the shuttle bay. Jax's shuttle sat waiting, still humming on cold standby. The alarms went wild. Concord interceptors had entered the Boneyard. Harsh beams of light cut across the bay as boarding teams locked vectors. "Boarding clamps in 30 seconds, Lumen warned. "Get us up," Jax barked, throwing himself into the pilot's chair. Orryx collapsed into a seat with a groan of stone. Rika knelt by a viewport, rifle still at the ready. Kira staggered in last, hair plastered to her forehead with sweat, clutching the recorder like a shield. "Strap in," Jax yelled. He punched thrusters. The shuttle bucked, tore loose from the bay, and shot into the debris field. Behind them, Concord cutters spat fire into the Boneyard. Wrecks shattered, derelict hulls ripped apart by precision beams. Raiders scattered like ants under floodlight. Jax threaded the shuttle through drifting spines and ruptured turrets, dodging beams that sliced past close enough to boil paint. Rika snapped shots at intercept drones as they closed in. Orryx braced himself against the hull, cracks still glowing faintly. Kira staggered to the co-pilot's seat, shoving wires out of the way. "Your nav's fried. Let me dash. "You know Concord code?" Jax demanded, teeth clenched. "I wrote Concord code," she snapped back, fingers flying. "Now fly straight before you get us killed." The shuttle jolted as beams seared past. Kira cursed and yanked a breaker. The nav board surged back to life. "Got you a blind lane? Thread the dorsal struts of that carrier husk. Go!" Jax yanked the stick. The shuttle dove under shattered decks, Concord beams chasing them through the wreck's ribcage. "Exit vector locked," Kira said. "Burn everything you've got." "Everyone hold on," Jax growled. He slammed the throttle forward. The shuttle screamed, engines bleeding sparks, but it tore free of the wreck into the black. Stars bent into white lines. FTL swallowed them whole. Silence, breathing, heartbeats, the smell of sweat and hot metal. Orryx slumped against the wall, cracks slowly dimming. Rika lowered her rifle and finally let out the breath she'd held since the bay. Kira sat with the recorder still in her lap, eyes hollow. "You don't understand," she said softly. This clears my name, but it also dooms me. The admiral who signed off on the engines, if this gets out, Concord will never stop hunting me." Jax looked at her, then at the recorder. The voice stirred cold in his mind. "Destroy the secondary data. Fleet paths only. Efficiency demands silence." His jaw clenched. He drew his sidearm, set the recorder on the deck, and fired once. Sparks exploded. Half the circuits died in a shower of light. Kira's face went white. "You—" "I burned the fleet paths," Jax said quietly. "What's left proves you were right. That's all." Her breath hitched. Anger warred with something else, something that looked like hope. "You've just painted a target on me," she whispered. "Welcome to the team," Rika said dryly. Orryx rumbled approval. "Stone respects truth, even hunted truth." Lumen's eyes flickered with unreadable light. "Deviation logged," they said softly. And though it was their voice, Jax heard the echo of the voice behind it, cold and displeased. Jax set the shuttle on auto and leaned back, staring into the streaking stars. He had broken orders, again and again, It had felt like the only choice that mattered. The voice whispered one last time. Responsibility compromises efficiency. Jax ignored it. Kira sat back, arms crossed over the recorder like it was a fragile child. "Fine," she said, voice rough. "I'll run with you. But don't think for a second this makes us friends." "No," Jax said, voice flat. "It makes us alive." The shuttle burned on, dragging them all deeper into a war they didn't yet understand.